Hey, welcome back. Last tutorial, we created some categories for our variables in our player blueprint, and we talked about how to adjust those variables in real time inside of our viewport. Now that we're ready, we're going to go ahead and jump in and start creating our boost function for our player. We're going to break this up into some bite-sized pieces so that it doesn't take us an hour and a half to do one tutorial. I'm going to make them a little bit smaller and go over it step by step in more detail if I can. Okay, so let's do a quick demo. Here is the demo scene. So if I hit play, my ball, if you notice in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see that I have the boost. So if I'm moving along, I can hit the shift button and accelerate. And I get a little graphic and my boost goes down. And then over time, the boost starts to go back up. That is what we're going to work on this time. And that's going to look something like this. So in our player blueprint, we're going to have our boost interaction. This is what we're going to work on today. We're going to create this with the exception of a couple nodes in here that we're not going to use for right now. And then we're going to work on the widget to fill the boost and refill it. So it takes a little bit of process, but first we got to get everything all set up. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to need to go in and we're going to need to create that user interface, right? So if we go down to our content drawer down here and we go into our content, we're going to go into the inputs folder, actions, and we're going to right click and we're going to go to input and we're going to create an input action. This is going to be called IA underscore boost. Okay, now we're going to double click on this. And then for our triggers right here, we're going to want to add two of them. The first one is going to be when we press it, and the second one is going to be when we release it. So when we hold the button down, something happens, and then we let go, something happens, and it sends information. Both of these should be set to default of 0.5. That's it for this one, so we'll go ahead and save it. We can close it. Now we're going to go in, back to our drawer, back to our inputs, and we're going to want to find our IMC rollerball. So this is our input mapping context, right? So we're going to double click on it. We're going to open it up. We're going to need to create the input for this. So up here under mappings, we're going to hit the plus button, and we're going to get this one down here that says none. So if you remember this, we're going to hit the down arrow, and we're going to select boost. Now we have boost here. And if it didn't open up like mine did, you can hit these down arrows. The first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to assign a key to this. So we're going to hit the keyboard, and I'm using my left shift button. So if I hit the left shift button, this is what I get, okay? And we don't need to change anything for this. It's already got our inputs from when we did our input action. So the press and release should show up here. Now we're also going to want to maybe add a game stick, right? So game controller. So if I hit plus here, now I'm going to down click, select gamepad, and what I'm using is the gamepad right trigger digital. Sort of like the acceleration button on a car game or something like that. So this one is also already set up. So we're going to hit save, and we can close this as well. Now let's go back to the blueprint for our player blueprint. I'm going to zoom in somewhere kind of towards the top so you can see there's my set input controls. And I'm just making another column really, so it doesn't really matter. You can put it wherever. Just make sure you can find it later when you need it. Now I'm going to right click and I am going to call up that AI underscore boost that we just created. I'm going to select it. And if we zoom up to it, we can see we have triggered and action value. We don't want either one of those. We're not using those. So we're going to hit the down arrow. What we are going to use is the ongoing and the completed. The ongoing means that as long as we're holding that button down, so if we hover over it, as long as we're holding the button down, it'll continue sending information, so firing basically. So kind of a press and hold type thing. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do though, before we actually have the boost go, is if you remember a few tutorials back, we added in the isAlive function. So we're going to want to use the isAlive function. I'm going to drag out, grab that, and we have the isAlive. So we need to verify that our player is alive. And from the ongoing, I'm going to drag out, and I'm going to type in branch, because we want a branch. And we're going to verify that our player is alive before we allow our player to boost. And it's going to look something like that. Now, the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to, the process, I'm going to compile this and save it real quick while I talk about this. So if we take a look at our movement, right? When we look at movement, we're using radians to move and then to make sure that we don't continue to accelerate and accelerate. We're setting a dampening. So we're setting the linear damping for the rotation of the ball. So as we're applying torque to the ball, we're limiting it so that it only goes to a top speed. The way that we can add this boost is we can kind of play around with this damping value right here, which we have as 0.5, and we can then change it so that from our input button, so when we're pressing W or S, we can now dynamically change damping using the shift button, so our boost, to change the value for this, which will allow our player to speed up. The way we're going to do that is we're going to take this damping, we're going to pull it out here, and we're going to set damping. And we're going to set that here, okay? If this is true, we're going to set damping. Well, what are we going to set it to? Okay, so we're going to create a variable called boost amount. If you remember over here, like, we don't have that. We don't even have a category called boost yet. So let's hit the plus button, and we're going to call this boost amount. And we're going to change this from being a Boolean to being a float. And we're going to create a new category right here so that we'll have a category of its own. And this is going to be the boost category because we're going to have some other variables as we go along with this. So we're going to create the category called boost. We'll have some other things join it later. Now, we can't put anything in the value yet because we have to compile it first and save it. Now, the amount that we're going to use is going to be a negative 0.2. So we're going to basically, instead of setting our damping to 0, which would allow our ball to accelerate a little bit, we're going to put it at a negative 2, which will allow it to have a noticeable acceleration, but not be so crazy that our ball goes flying across the map. So at negative 0.2, this seems to be a good amount. I've used that in this game. So if you wish to play around with this, we're going to go ahead and open that eye up, compile and save it again, so that you can go in and change it if you wish dynamically like we talked about last time. So I'm going to go ahead and get this amount, and we're going to plug that in here, and that's what we're going to set our damping to. Now, once we're done holding down the button, we should be able to release it, and we want it to go back to what our default amount is. So basically we were boosting, now we want to not boost, so we want to go back to what our regular damping is for our ball, right? The way we're going to do that again is we're going to take damping, we're going to set it, and once it's completed, we're going to go ahead and plug that in here, and we're going to want it to go back to our default 0.5. But the problem is, even though we have damping here set as 0.5, this is not really our default damping. This is a variable that we're changing in this particular function. So what it is now, once we change it to negative 0.2 up here, it is now negative 0.2. So if we were to pull it out from here and change it back to this, it's going to stay at negative 0.2. We're not really going back. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need, for our movement, we're going to need to create a default damping variable that will take us back to what our default variable amount should be. So we're going to create another variable. We're going to hit plus, and we're going to call this default damping. Okay, so default damping, and I'm going to just go ahead and get it. We haven't actually compiled it yet, so let's do that. A couple things we need to do. We're going to compile it and save it. We also need to put it in the right category. So this is going to go in the movement category with the other damping, and we're going to set this at 0.5. That's the value I have. Again, if you're going to change these variables, make sure you go through and that you use this default damping as your basic one. So you're going to have to change it to whatever you change your other damping to, your start out damping. So I'm going to compile and save it. And now, even though we've set this, we need to make sure that we're actually changing our linear dampening back. Even though dynamically it's working here, we want to make sure that we force it, because if we're holding down the button and we run out of boost, we want to make sure that what's going to happen is it's going to then force the damping to change back to the amount that we're setting it to here. So we're going to right click. We're going to get linear. Maybe I should type it as set linear. Yeah, you know what? Probably should call it set linear. We'll call it set linear. There we go. Set linear dampening. It comes up a little bit easier. Set linear dampening. We're going to plug this in, and this is the variable amount that we're going to plug in right here. So this 0.5 should change back. Compile and save that. Okay, so we could go in and we can test it and see if this is really working just by visually checking it, but let's go ahead and use the print string, that thing I showed you a couple tutorials ago. So I'm going to right click on it. We're going to use the print string. And we're going to get another one. So I'm going to do Control D down here. We're going to plug this in. And because I want to see what this amount is, what we're setting it to, I'm going to plug that in here. For this one, this is the variable that we're setting it to here. So I want to make sure that that's what we're going back to. And I don't know why it always puts it behind that. There we go. All right, compile and save it. So now let's take a look. Let's hit play on our screen. And if I move forward, it should move at a normal speed. Now, if I hit the shift button for mine, hit shift, I should get negative 0.2, and I should notice my ball looks like it's moving faster. When I release, check at the very, very top. When I release it, it goes to 0.5. Now, because I'm not holding that button down, it only pops up real quick. So you only see 0.5 one time, and our ball does slow down and goes back to 0.5. If I hold the shift button down again, negative 0.2. If I let go, 0.5, and it does visibly slow down over a few seconds. And we go back to our normal speed. That is working. Okay, so that's going to be it for this tutorial. We have finished up getting our player blueprint initially set up so that the boost function works. The next few steps are going to be to add in the HUD so that we can visibly see it and see the fill go up and fill go down. And we also are going to use that to help set a timer so that once the amount is gone, our boost function will turn off. And then that'll set our linear dampening back. So we're probably going to take another 2, maybe 3 tutorials to get the boost function finished up. If you liked what you saw, please hit the like button down at the bottom. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for playing. I'll see you.